Today we're going to be hopefully reassembling everything. I'm still waiting on the transmission pan, and I'm waiting on the parking neutral switch thing, but those don't go on until the last minute. Just a quick update. As you can see, this is super duper clean. And so I took this and had it hot tanked, which is basically like a hot acid bath. And that way I know that all those little pieces of fine metal and stuff like that are out of the transmission. I had the bell housing and the tail section done. So we're going to just basically go through now and reassemble it. I'm going to, for part 2 here, I'm going to pause a little bit more and do some more videos to show you guys some of the performance mods and stuff as I install them that are different than just the stock transmission. But other than that, we're going back to the standard bird's eye view of the process, and that's pretty much it. Let's get this puppy back together, and hopefully we can get it back in the truck this weekend. So this is the major performance upgrade of the kit. We installed a new one of these earlier, you saw, and I'm not really sure if it's chicken and egg, but basically what happens is this seal fails and doesn't seal properly, and you can see this is just covered in clutch material. And the material comes from here. This is what failed. This is the 3/4 clutch. This is a standard clutch disc, and it measures 59 thousandths, 58,000, and it's way too thin, and if you could feel it, you could see that it's absolutely slick and crystallized, and there's almost no give in it at all. Now, the one major upgrade of all of this is we're going to a very heavy-duty Borg-Warner kit, and it has different thicknesses. It has its own end plate, front end plate, and snap ring, which is on here somewhere. There we go. Which are all of its own thicknesses, and it allows you to run 8 plates instead of the standard, I believe, 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the stock one has 6, I believe, in the same amount of space, and that just more clutches is more friction, which basically gives you better engagement. So we're going to install this next. It installs the exact same way as the stock one would. It's just it has its own end plate to allow for the thicker, and you can see it right there. So let me just measure that for you guys real quick. The stock end plate is coming in at 221 thou, and the new end plate comes in at 216 thou, which basically gives you the extra space. Because it also, let's see, where is it? The stock front end plate is 188, and the new front end plate is 128. So basically, the two thinner end plates give you the space for the extra clutches, and the snap ring's probably a little bit thinner as well to get it locked all in there while still maintaining the same amount of play. So you assemble it the same way, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that in a second. But this is the major upgrade. There's also what's called the Z-Pack upgrade, which is basically just another version of this, which uses a different manufacturer clutch. Based on what I read online, I prefer the Borg-Warner high energy. Everything else in here is Borg-Warner, so might as well stick with what I know. So let's get it in there. So here's the other part of our problem. You probably can't see this, but this surface is actually fairly grooved and worn, as well as having a certain concavity to it, and that's bad. So for comparison, here is a brand new drum, And here's our old belt, and this is where the belt rides around it. And you can see this belt is fairly chewed up here in the middle. And this is fairly chewed up as well. So we're going to be reassembling everything with a brand new unit, and it also comes with new bearings, which is nice, so I don't have to do any more hammering. But this is another part of what failed and overheated inside the transmission. So this is the first part of the upgrade process, is these upgraded springs from TransGo. And basically you just pop out the old springs and put them in. And if you have this style with the hook and clip, you use the yellow springs. If you have the other style, you use the white springs. It's pretty self-explanatory. And make sure that you don't use those little black slider springs. This is the first of many upgrade parts, but it's strictly designed to help with better 3/4 shifts. Basically, you do a little bit more strength. Some people don't bother doing it on the trucks because it's not as important, but I figured since I bought it, might as well do it. It's a $7 upgrade, so now we can kind of begin reassembling this drum. This right here is the pump input shaft. This is the old one. And this is one of the many upgrades that your $700 buys you. And it's a brand new unit. It's got, I believe, oversized bushings in it. Yeah, oversized bushings in it. As well as you can see, my old one was all grooved and nasty, and I would have wanted to replace it anyway. And since we're replacing these Teflon seals anyway, it doesn't really matter. But, so Dana recommends the freeze and bake method, which means that you bake this at 500 degrees in your oven. I don't like that because that gets chemicals into the oven, and unless you have a powder coating oven or something specific, it's going to be kind of nasty. Quite frankly, I didn't have any issues. I have a 20-ton Harbor Freight press. I pressed the old one out without any problems. A couple of notes. You want to make sure that you hit these with an air impact, not an electric, an air impact to get them out. I froze this for several days to get this as cold as possible to make it help it fit a little better when I pressed it in. And then when you're done, you want to make sure that you retorque this to 120 inch-pounds. There we go. And Dana actually provides you with the T27 bit that you need. So, all in all, great service, great product. So now we've got the new shaft in, we can finish rebuilding this part of the pump and get our pump back together. This right here is our next performance upgrade. This is the boost valve in the pump. So this is the actual valve itself. These are the old components. I have a black oversized and a red inside spring, and the old kind of aluminum body maybe valve and cover. And then here are the new units. This is steel for sure. This is also steel, I believe. It's much heavier, so it's pre-lubricated, and we have much stiffer springs. The same boost valve. So we're going to install this in the pump. This is the only performance modification on the pump other than our new shaft right here. All of the other major performance upgrades are going to be in the valve body itself. So now that we've finally moved to the valve body, let me show you the first modification that's part of the TransGo kit. This is the stock 3/4 or 4 accumulator piston or whatever the shit, and it's made out of aluminum, which is good. Here's our new one. The kit replaces the shaft, the piston. There's actually a new D-ring for this, but the primary difference is this guy. So this is the old spring. It's much softer than the new one. But the new one's a little shorter. So we're going to install this as part of the instructions. So make sure that fits tightly in there. We'll put a new D-ring on it and bolt it right in. So here's our stock accumulator piston. You can see it's a plastic piston, which is garbage. This is the outer spring it had, and then this is actually the inner spring, or what's left of it. So it's shattered in its entirety. This is the accumulator piston housing. And so what TransGo recommends is this configuration. This gets a new D-ring, replace the hardened shaft. They have a little spacer here, a blue spring, and then an orange spring on top, rather than a spring inside and outside. So this is how we're going to assemble it back inside the cover. I'm actually going to pull out this hardened rod real quick and clean it out, and then we should be good to go. Unfortunately, due to time requirements, I couldn't film all of this, but there's a new valve in here, new valve in here, new valves in here, and basically it replaces these guys. So when you're done with everything, these should be the spare parts you have left over, because these are the lighter valves that were replaced with heavier duty items and stuff that won't shatter with the PWM. So all that's really left on the valve body is for me to replace this piston, put new O-rings on this manifold pressure unit, reinstall a few other things, and we should be good to go.
What's up, guys? So today I'm waiting for Fry Ryan to get here so we can install the transmission, and I want to just share with you guys a few closing thoughts. First, you'll read things on the internet where people are like, oh yeah, we pulled it, rebuilt it, and reinstalled it in an afternoon. Never in your life. Realistically, for this project, you need to plan about 3.5 hours to get the transmission out, 3.5 hours to get the transmission in. It can take a little longer, a little less time, depending on how lucky you get and how many tools you have and how effective it is. To rebuild the transmission, I talked to Dana at ProBuilt, the guy who sold me the kit for this transmission, and he's been rebuilding transmissions longer than I've been alive. And I asked him, I said, how long does it take you? If I set a transmission like this on a bench in front of you, how long does it take you to rebuild everything? And he said 12 hours, and he prefers to do it over the course of 2 days. I spent about 25 hours rebuilding this over the course of 5 days in the evenings. And to be honest with you, because I had to take everything apart and put it back together probably 3 or 4 times, in reality it should have taken me about 15 hours to rebuild. Nobody says that. Nowhere does it say that it really takes a lot of time to go through and properly check everything. So just keep that in mind. 15 hours is a long time. We're talking about 3-4 hours a night over the course of several days. And it takes a toll on you after a week, to be sure. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is, nobody talks about, is that the inside of the transmission has a lot of sharp edges. So I don't know how well the camera's going to focus on this, but I just want to show you my hands. So I just got out of the shower maybe 20 minutes ago. So this is what my hands look like. And you can see there's like 15 million little cuts, bruises, scrapes, stuff like that. I'm not sitting here being like, oh my god, my fingernail broke. Oh no. But it is something that you need to be aware of, that it's going to just obliterate your hands. Now, as far as installation is concerned, I talked to Dana and asked him about the break-in procedure, and here's what he recommends. Put about 1/2 quart in the converter, which we already did. Once it's in the truck, put about 6 quarts into the pan, which we will. Start it up so it gets the pump going, and immediately add 3 more quarts while it's running. He told me that the dipstick obviously has two sides, and he goes, read whichever side reads the lowest, because that's the true reading, because of the way the fluid flows. Basically, while it's still on the stands, gently put it into all 4 gears in reverse, and make sure that the wheels spin fine. Now that everything is okay there, you can lower it to the ground, and he said you want to do 10 miles of manual shifting from first into fourth. He said either 10 miles or about 30 times, whichever is most convenient. And so you want to do quarter throttle, first, second, third, fourth, stop, all the way back down to first, second. You don't want to downshift. Then he said bring it back, check the fluid, top it off. You can add up to a quart of fluid at this point, because what's happening is as the transmission pump rolls, there's a bleeder line here at the very, very top, and all of the air in the transmission has got to go out of that bleeder line. So as you're rolling along the road, you're adding more and more fluid to replace the vacant airspace. Then he says do another 10 miles and maybe like half throttle in, just leave it in overdrive, bring it back, top off the transmission. He said it's not uncommon to add a half a quart at this point. And he goes, then give it another 10 miles of 3/4 throttle, and then if everything's fine, you can just keep driving it and check the transmission fluid in a week or two. On average, you're looking at 12 to 15 quarts of transmission fluid for an entire system. Because remember, it's an OEM cooler, but it's a remote cooler, so I have that as well. So what I recommend is Dextron 3. You can buy it at TransStar. It's $3 a bottle. You can buy it by the case. And it's 12 bottles to a case. So anyway, so basically at this point I'm just waiting for Ferrari to get here, so we can get the transmission in, get everything hooked back up, and hopefully start driving my truck around. Thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed these videos.